Hello there, and welcome along to the Gardener Ben podcast and episode 18 of season 2. This week I have a particularly special episode to bring you featuring Matt from Peter Beales Roses. Before next week, we conclude this season of the podcast with a catch up with my ever so lovely and long suffering husband, Mark. This week, it's been a very busy week again here in the garden, with the first couple of photo shoots taking place for my new and upcoming book. It's Friday, which means I'm sat at a dining table at North Lodge, utterly surrounded by large houseplants that are all having their weekly water and their weekly feed. And I confess a lot of them have been a little bit neglected over the last couple of months, and I'm looking at a very large variegated monstera, which really does need some work doing to it, so I must allocate some time for that over the next couple of weeks. Last week, Mark and I headed off in the car to Norfolk to pay a visit to Peter Beales Roses, their show garden centre, and of course the Rosarian restaurant based in Norfolk. It was a very long drive, and we stayed overnight close to the gardens before heading there in the morning for breakfast. To say I was utterly overwhelmed and very impressed was an understatement. The gardens are absolutely sublime and have left me with some amazing ideas. If you're struggling for inspiration about what to do with roses in your garden, I would strongly advise you get yourself in the car, and especially during the summer months where the garden is looking so extraordinarily beautiful, head over to Norfolk and pay a visit to Peter Beales Roses. I did several live stream events from the gardens themselves, so if you don't have the time to make your way there, do have a look on social media for those videos to give you a little bit of inspiration. The gardens are an absolute assault on the senses. I've never seen so much colour, texture and form, and some wonderful planting schemes. Cleverly planted with herbaceous perennials, roses, ramblers, climbers of all descriptions, and also an awful lot of flowering shrubs. It's the structures in the garden that left me utterly speechless and very inspired. They are absolutely everywhere. Everything from rose arches, walkways, pillars, posts, obelisks, and even an observatory platform which you can climb and look out over the entire garden. Really useful ways of using roses in three-dimensional forms, in large pots, containers, urns, and even patio roses in hanging baskets. Many of you will be really familiar with the wildflower meadow here in the North Lodge Cottage Garden, an area of 150 square metres set aside and planted in 2022. There's no doubt in my mind that this area is absolutely beautiful, but it only looks good for around 4 to 6 weeks of the year. The rest of the year it looks a little bit drab and a little bit unloved, and space is now at such a premium in the garden with roses that I'm going to have to take this area and turn it into a rose garden. I'm determined that it's still going to be as low and impactful as possible and still set aside as an area of quiet and tranquility to allow nature into the garden. There will be still a large source of water here, and I'll try and maintain it just as gently as possible. But over the next few weeks and months, this area will slowly be transformed and be the place where the 70 roses I'm reviewing this year will find their final resting place in the garden. So I'm going to be taking some ideas I've picked up at the Peter Beales Show Garden and create them here in the garden on a smaller scale. So I can include many more large shrubs, ramblers and climbers on structures such as obelisks, pillars, posts, and even archways. Let's catch up with Matt, who's one of the gardening team at Peter Beales. Well, on today's episode of the podcast, after my recent visit to the Peter Beales Show Garden last weekend, I'm joined by Matt from Peter Beales. Matt, welcome along. How are you?
Not too bad, Ben. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. I must admit, I'm just struggling to recover a little bit. The weekend was a lot, in a
Yeah,
very good way. Goodness me, the show garden is looking absolutely stunning, isn't it?
it is really, yeah, it's a joy to work in, to be honest.
I think it's got a little way to go before it actually hits its peak, but I'm very familiar with the show gardens you put together for sort of the likes of Chelsea Flower Show, but I wasn't expecting to see that kind of display on that kind of scale. It's absolutely vast, and
Yeah,
an absolute joy to walk around. So, huge congratulations to yourself and the team, to everybody that's been involved in pulling that together. How long has the show garden at Peter Beales been like that, and how long has it taken to put together?
well, it's been. a show garden as such for probably 30 years or so. Um, Over the years, bits get added.
Yeah.
So it started off and it was just quite small up one end, and just a row of arches that led from the sales area into the garden. And then things like the long walkway, St Albans walkway, with the sort of 50, 60 uprights all covered in climbers and ramblers, that was introduced along with the pond. And then the observation turret, which gives you a massive, kind of 360-degree view from height of the whole gardens. Yeah, so it's always evolving, and we've, even within the last 2 weeks, we've dug additional beds and been still planting.
As I
Yeah,
think a garden always should be as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, something that I've really taken away. Obviously, I did some live streaming from the garden across all of my platforms, so people could get a bit of a gist for what you have there. Something I've taken away is just how very, very cleverly it's planted, and in a three-dimensional form. Not only for its planting for companion planting, because it's not just roses. There's a lot of herbaceous perennials, a lot of flowering
That's
shrubs,
right.
which give it, multiple facets and interest. But the three-dimensional look, as in the use of structures, pillars, posts, obelisks, archways, walkways, observation platforms. I mean, it's something for me to take away to my own garden, but a very, very clever way of using space and packing just so many plants into a relatively. I mean, it's a large garden, but thousands of plants into a relatively small space.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And
Wait,
what we'd like to do as well, especially, we have all these huge structures, some of which would have been used at Chelsea
hmm.
over the years. Some of them have been in other gardens and been relocated here. The observation turret, for example, that was for Chelsea,
Okay.
with this kind of really great concept that customers can come in and see the stand. They can climb the stairs. They can get a view of the floral marquee from up high. It would have been stunning, and the pictures that I've seen, it was amazing. But health and safety as it is, said no one can go up that turret.
I was just going to say. I mean, I don't remember going up a turret, but yes,
No.
I think that's one of the frustrating things about it, isn't it, with the show gardens? Not so much with
Yes.
the gardens and the floral marquee, because you do get to enjoy those normally, but for the show gardens, for instance, at Chelsea and at Hampton Court, you have to be very, very special, and I'm not that special just yet, to blag my way into a design concept where they actually should be viewed. So you kind of get to view them as if you were looking over your next door neighbour's fence, which is not really quite
Yes.
how they're
That's
supposed to
it.
be enjoyed, is it?
No. No. Whereas, like our gardens here, that is exactly the idea of, the gardens we do at Chelsea is a snapshot of the things that we have growing in our gardens, all year round.
And I
Um,
couldn't honestly believe that it was free to get in, it was free to park, and I could have spent well, we spent as much time as we could there, but that you could spend basically the entire day there, and you could go around the gardens with your list like I did, taking photographs of labels, and then head off to the garden centre and the plant store, have your lunch, and then pick up some roses that you fell in love with. I mean, I hope you
that's
can
it.
identify one for me. What is the enormous rambler up the observation tower? Not yet in flower. I thought it might be either Kiskate or Sanders White, something like that. Not yet in flower. To the back left-hand side of that, it's got, I think, the
Yeah.
Alchemist on the right-hand side. And then what's the one that's going up the back there?
Now, my brain is telling me one thing, but I think it's another.
Okay.
I've got a feeling it's Brenda Colvin up there,
Okay. So
but it,
producing huge, massive sprays of flowers, and I'm assuming big amounts
yes,
of hip as well.
and it's either Brenda Colvin or it's um, Bobby James, and my brain is just not letting me
Okay.
because it's
Well,
not flowered yet.
I've
It's not
I've
one
I've
that's
I've got a
jumped at
Bobby
me.
James at home that's not that big. I mean, I know he gets large, but that's an enormous, great big thing, isn't it? It's
It is,
massive.
and it's not very easy to prune either, because obviously, you're on a ladder at the top of the observation turret. You're kind of strapped on as if you're climbing a mountain. Yeah,
And it's
it's
not a very, I mean, if it's Bobby James, it's not a particularly friendly rose either. It's well
no.
laced with barbs. I mean, I had to take mine off the fence it was on over the winter, and it got behind the wires that I had attached it to, and therefore it was just starting to really pinch and strangle itself. I thought, no, I'm gonna have to cut the wires, so I'm gonna have to put it back up. So I did battle with it, and it's like, oh, no, bloody vicious thing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Do you know what? Without going and having a look at the label,
That's
which
okay.
is really terrible. I should have
No,
done my
not
research, shouldn't
no,
I?
not at all. How would you know what I was going to ask you? So, for those that don't know, we might have skipped a couple of stages. What is it that you do for Peter Beals?
Oh, okay, so I now work full time in the garden.
Okay.
Joined the firm a few years ago, um, working in dispatch, so picking, packing, looking after all the roses for mail order.
Hmm.
And then just over a year ago, um, I got asked whether anyone was interested in joining Vaughan, who's our head gardener in the garden, and just kind of give him a hand.
Yeah.
And my hand just shot up. Oh, yep, that's me. That's mine. I'll take that. So a couple of days a week over the last year, and then now I'm now full time in the garden, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and he drops down to 2 days a week in July. So yeah, we'll be a little bit of role reversal then.
Okay.
So yeah, lots and lots of jobs for me to do.
Okay. And he's slowly starting to think about retiring, or
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
gist. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like my working week very much. I'm slowly sliding away from physical gardening work into content creation. So I've been 5 days a week down to 3 days a week, and I'm on the verge by the end of this year. Well, there is a date set. I'm not going to vocalize it because certain people don't know just yet, but there is a date set for me to hang up my physical boots and just content create. So a similar
Brilliant.
sort of situation to yourself, and I
Yeah,
take it that you absolutely you adore it because I can hear the tone in your voice when you're talking about it. You're obviously very very passionate about the subject.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I first visited the gardens 3 or 4 years before I started here.
Hmm.
And my first walk round, I said to my wife, I thought, well, do you know what? It'd be lovely to work in a garden like this. And at the time, I worked in an office, and it was very mundane. And then the opportunity came up, and I was like, yeah, it's that time. And then when the opportunity to come into the go and move into the garden, I was like, this is a bit of me. And yeah, so happy, so
Oh,
lucky to be in there as well.
wonderful. So before you joined the Peter Beals team, you said you were working in office, but what was your background before that?
So I was a civil servant for about 15 years.
Okay, so very very
Yeah,
different indeed.
very, very different. Used to do probably about 4,000 steps a day. Now I do probably in excess of 25,000 steps a day,
Now you wear a
working
pair of work.
outside.
Now you wear out a pair of work boots every 6 to 8 weeks. If you're
That's exactly
if you're
it.
anything like me. Oh dear. Oh, that's really wonderful. Just going to show that if you want to change and you have a passion for something, you really should do it.
Absolutely right. 100%.
And tell us a little bit about Peter Beals. It's a very a well-established English breeding rose breeding brand. You're based up in Norfolk.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been on the site for about 45 years now.
Yeah.
The company must be around about 55-ish years old.
So they're just about
Um,
classing and accepting you as locals by now, then.
yeah, I think so. Just about.
You might
Um,
you,
yeah.
you might get acknowledged in the post office if you're anything near our way
Yeah.
once you've been in
Yeah.
somewhere about 4 years. Yeah.
You'd be amazed how many people locally drive past and they know it's there and have never been in.
Well, I
So
did
then when
actually.
we do have
I did.
people come in, they're kind of blown away. Like, I didn't even know this was here.
No, no, I spoke to one of my followers that after my visit, and they inboxed and said, "Oh, what were you doing up my way?" And I said, "Well, what do you think I was doing?" They said, "I've no idea." I said, "Well, I was at Peter Beals," and they said, "Well, I drive past it every day. I've never been in there." I said, "But you follow me for rose content. I mean, what are you playing at? Go swing by in there one day and just have a look.
Yeah,
And if you fancy going back, have a go back at the weekend and have a look at it."
well, that's it. We're open every day, and I believe we're open till 6 through the summer months.
Oh, okay, so
So
get that
it's kind of
lovely late
no,
afternoon sun as well.
that's it. No excuse not to pop in on the way home from work just for a wander around and a quick purchase.
And now, now you were up at Chelsea just a couple of weeks ago with the team, and
Yes.
can you remember how many gold medals you've now walked off with as a team?
Yeah, we're now on number 30. So yeah,
Wow. Well,
very, very proud. Yeah.
huge congratulations. I mean, the stand, as always at Chelsea, was absolutely sublime. I mean, very much like the gardens we've just been talking about, but an absolute joy. I mean, just that sense of romance and whimsy and movement and color, just color absolutely everywhere. So
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
many people are involved in creating something on that scale?
Well, we have around about 8 people per day at the show.
Hmm.
So it was about 8 days this year to set up. But then you've also got your drivers bringing the lorry fulls of roses up each day.
It must be
Um,
several lorryfuls as well. Was I right in thinking it used 3,000 plants for the display? Is that right?
so we grow 3,000, and then
Okay.
there's about 1,100 that actually get used. So it kind
Okay.
of allows for some to flower early and to go over, and we lose them. Some to not flower soon enough,
Yeah.
and then there should be enough. Just fingers crossed, there's enough left to give a good display.
And I'm right in thinking those stock plants, those are you're keeping in as in show stock that you're using again and again year after year. You're growing those on,
Yes,
pruning those,
yeah,
and
and
keeping those in pots.
some of those ramblers, especially like the ones going into the trees, some of
Hmm.
them were 12, 13 feet tall. So they're in a
Wow.
pot, but then we're then, dressing them up in the trees.
And
Um,
and and who is responsible for getting it to that stage? Have you got a member of staff that actually works to
yeah,
specifically on the project?
yeah, that is the very amazing Michael Baldwin, who has a separate nursery over at Renningham.
Yeah.
He grows and he also does our breeding. So while he's pretty much spends from about Christmas time up until second week of May, third week of May, just living and breathing Chelsea. So he'll be up at the crack of dawn to make sure the vents are all in the right place. He'll be up there last minute at night to make sure everything's temperatures are all okay. And he'll be, moving things out of the shade tunnel into the hot tunnel and then vice versa. And yeah, it's a lot of work, and he does a fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, he really does. And how long has he been involved in producing the garden for Chelsea?
So he must be probably 15 years, something like that.
Oh, so
He's been at the company a bit longer than that, but yeah, he's very much and it's all kind of by eye, so he'll know, oh, hang on, no, that needs an extra couple of degrees, so I'll move that now. He won't
yeah.
even necessarily know what plant it is he's looking at. He just knows at what stage
Just
that's in, and it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
and then hopefully in June he takes himself away on a lovely holiday and sort of locks himself away, and doesn't go back in the greenhouse for some time because that sounds like an awfully lot of pressure and a lot of hard work.
Yeah, no, I think he manages a couple of days fishing, and then it's carrying on with the hybridizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at all the seedlings, and then we obviously have other shows. So we've got BBC Gardeners World Live coming up next week,
And
and then
which
Hampton Court 2 weeks
so,
after that.
sorry, just so everybody knows where they can see you guys. Where is BBC Gardeners World Live? Where's that one being
So
held?
that's at the Birmingham NEC.
Okay.
So that is can't tell you the date, but it's next Thursday to
It's all right.
Sunday.
They can Google it.
Um, and then yeah, 2 weeks after that is then the Hampton Court Flower Show.
No, it's not Hampton Court in just 3 weeks' time, is it?
Yeah, something like
Oh,
that.
I'm not.
It's
I don't
yeah,
think. I think it's actually early this year, isn't it? It makes it into the very, very end of June.
yes, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
they're very close together. Goodness me. I mean,
So we're putting a lot of hours in at the moment,
yeah,
and
me too. Me too. I'm reviewing
yeah,
70. I'm reviewing 70 roses this year, and I think I might
wow.
have. I think I might give myself some sort of episode. I need to go and sit down in a darkened room for a while because it is an awful lot, and most of the frustration is with Wi-Fi connection. I know it sounds really silly, but just loading the
No,
content seems to take longer than filming the blooming stuff.
it's incredible.
And then there's lists. I'm probably much like your grower and the people that are involved in creating the garden. There's lists upon lists upon lists of fragrance rating, disease resistance, thorn count, and all the rest of it. All of
Yeah,
this stuff I keep very geekily on my phone in albums all over the place. So it's quite a lot of work this year. And we were planning for the
definitely.
podcast to be well wrapped up before National Rose Month kicked off at the beginning of June. And I've had so many wonderful guests, including yourself, onto the podcast that I actually haven't managed to wrap up the seasons just yet. So we've overrun and everything's overlapping. And my very, very patient husband is at the end of his tether. So you guys, you mentioned you're going to be at Hampton Court.
Yep, we'll be there.
Yeah, so I'll see you there on press day. Looking forward to that one as well. And then
Excellent
is,
stuff.
is that is that the end of show season for you guys? Then can you breathe a sigh of release, or is there something else after that?
No, there will be the Sandringham Flower Show, which is
Ah,
just a 1 day
wonderful.
event.
Yes, that's
Um,
close. That's close to you, location wise, isn't it?
yes, yeah. So we're talking that's about an hour's drive.
Hmm.
Um, and we for that we use cut flowers. So
Okay.
there's some locally grown roses within kind of half an hour from here. So we tend to spend a day. We spend the Monday in the fields picking roses.
Yeah.
So these enormous bunches, and it's just walk in the fields, and you kind of walk into a field, and there's best part of 100,000 rose plants all kind of smiling at you like,
Do
oh,
you,
pick me.
do you know what? I said this to Mark as we left the car park on Saturday when we were up at Peter Beales, that I would love to get into one of the growing fields and just have a look at it for the sheer scale and size and the amount of
Yeah,
colour that must be there. It must be absolutely astonishing at this time of year.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that is definitely something to behold. The first time I saw it, I couldn't get over it. I was like, this
And
is just
and
incredible.
roughly how many blooms will you be harvesting for Sandringham?
So we have about 35 to 40 bowls of flowers,
Yeah.
and each bowl will have about 25 to 30 stems in it.
Okay, so
So
quite a lot then.
it's quite a lot, yeah. And then there's always then spares picked just in case we
That's-
break anything or anything, any casualties on the travel up.
yeah.
So then, yeah, so picking in the field one day, then we set up on the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday, with there'll be a lucky few there. Um, in the past, it was always Prince Charles that would come to the stand, and he would come to our stand first.
Hmm.
And obviously now he's the king. We're hoping that we'll see him again this year.
I'm I'm
Um,
I'm sure he will remember you and the team. He's got a good memory.
he certainly seems to remember Ian and Tina, which are they you may have met them at
I did
Chelsea at
indeed. It was
on the
an
show day.
absolute pleasure to make their
Yeah,
acquaintance. Yes.
yeah. So yeah, hopefully that'll all go smoothly, and then I believe that is us then done for shows. Yeah. Although no, actually saying that, I didn't mention that we have a festival of roses. So we have a 2 day event that is actually the same weekend as Gardens World Live. So I think it's the 14th and 15th of June.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that will be a big event at the nursery. There's music, and there's stalls, and we do lectures and demonstrations of all the different processes and things we go through. Yeah, usually a really, really popular day, busy, fun, light-hearted. Nice to kind of share the gardens with a good amount of people.
Oh, very nice, Tom. And it did say when I saw saw the posters up in the Rosarian restaurant when we ate at the weekend that it was such a shame that we hadn't timed our visit. And Mark said, "Well, why didn't you look at the website?" And I said, "Well, I timed the visit of when I had a tiny little window of time when the gardens may look, as good as they
That's
could
it.
do, and I really timed myself to make sure the gardens looked lovely and I could get home and yeah, because as it was, one of the roses I was planning to review went over in the 17 hours that I dare to leave it."
Oh no.
Oh, it was a rose I was supposed to review last year, and yeah, I looked at it earlier and said, "Well, you had like 8 or 9 flowers on you when I left you on Friday afternoon, and now you've got
Oh,
nothing on it you at all." It's up. Well, the review is going to have to be the fact that if you haven't got any flowers on you, I can't sort of review a rose that only has flowers on it for 5 minutes. So you have to
no,
be
that's
what it
very
will
true.
be. Have to be an honest reflection of what it actually is. So
That's
this
it.
year, you launched no fewer than three. I'm not saying you, but Peter Beals launched no
Yep,
fewer than three brand new varieties this year. So one of
that's
which I've
correct.
already seen. I've got here in the garden already. Going to be sharing my first impressions of Ashton Wold with my subscribers and followers in the next couple of weeks. And what other
Fantastic.
roses did you also launch?
So the second one was a rose called Linda Lee.
Which is just
That's
lovely.
Yeah. Do you know what? That was so popular
Yeah, I
with
can.
everyone, and it was in so many different places. People were like, oh, what's that one? Yeah, that's one. What about that one? Yeah, that's the same one. And it was, oh yeah, that was really kind of captivating everyone.
Hmm.
It looked stunning, smelt great. It held its form for that whole week with all the dust and the wind in there and all the heat.
And the heat and
No,
people
no
touching
kind of
it and
sign of, yeah, exactly. No sign of it, dropping its petals everywhere. So that was fantastic.
yeah.
And then the third one is a rose called Sugran.
Hmm.
Um, Really, really frilly pink, kind of a muddled rose. Don't know if you know Bienvenue. Similar in looks to that, not quite as big. The
Yeah.
scent though, absolutely knock your socks off.
Well, I'm very
Incredible.
excited. I'm very excited about all three of them. I mean, they're all beautiful. I mean, Ashton Wold, lovely, buttery yellow, open formed, perfect for pollinators. And obviously Linda Lee, as we were talking about just a second ago, beautiful form. And that is something very
Yeah,
transcendent with the way that that catches the light. I mean, in every single angle, it just emits color and goes from a light pink to a lovely soft apricot with sort of tones of yellow in it, a dusty pink in some lights. So that's right. And I'm really glad that you gave me the pronouncing of Sue Graham, because I was going to be struggling to pronounce that one. So thank you very much for, for
No
giving me that.
problem.
I'm yet to get hold of the last two, and I'm really keen to get Peter Beales to send those across to me so I can do my thing with those. But yeah, those are all going to be available for bare root season, aren't they? Like, people can
They
get
will
hold of
be,
those and
yes.
order
Yeah,
those as of October, November time this year.
that's it. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure whether pre-order's gone live for both of those yet, but yeah, it would be very soon. If
Yeah.
it hasn't, then I'd keep an eye on the socials and
Yeah, yeah, I'm aware that the pre-orders are already open for Ashton Wold, but I think yeah, it
yes,
might be Hampton Court you might be doing that for the last two.
yeah, I think you might be right.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
don't mean to
that'd
steal
be
the show,
nice.
but I'd say that it's not that's normally the way that most brands would do it.
Yeah, but as I say, they're both really lovely roses. And actually, over the last few years, there's been some fantastic roses released. Um, and we were looking around the garden earlier actually, and you possibly saw it on the weekend. The rose called Oxford Physic Rose.
Yes,
Um,
that my
that
review
was
for that one
so
is lined up and ready to go, all
so
filmed.
that was released on the first Chelsea that I did
Hmm.
for the company, and you know what? It was great. But looking at it in the garden as it was over the weekend, has been over the last week, it just looks incredible. And I keep
And
every time I walk past it, I just have to stop. I'm like, no, you're supposed to be working that. Come on, stop looking at that rose. It'll be there tomorrow.
well, that one is
But
actually a shrub rose, isn't it? But you've got that
it
in
is.
certain areas in the garden trained as a short climber. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd like to do that a lot. If we find that we've got shrubs or even floribundas that tend to want to send out a long shoot, then and there's somewhere to tie it to, then we'll tie it and we'll let it climb. And if they enjoy flowering like that, then that's fine.
I
It
also
gives
also
us more
also
height.
also saw the use of Ivor's rose on the side of a rose arch as well, which is a
Yes.
really nice deep cerise pink one with a sort of a very open um uh, sort of a side plate sized flower, isn't it? But it's a particular.
Yes.
It is a little bit the shrub itself. I mean, it does tend to nod ever so slightly. It's got sort of arching stems, so that one. And
Yes.
again, just goes to show that actually you don't have to just use a climb or a rambling rose to cover a rose arch or an arbor.
Oh,
The
absolutely
actual
not.
the sides you can actually use something a large shrub that will actually cover the middle ground from sort of floor to about 4 to 5 feet, and with something else.
Yeah, and it just it keeps it interesting as well, especially if you've got one of the your once flowering ramblers or something over the top of your arch. They're beautiful, but if you want a bit more throughout the rest of the season, then planting something next to it that's going to kind of head that way
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Well, I'd say Oxford Physics is the review is all queued up and lined up ready to go. I'm very big fan of that one here in the garden. As is, I'm not sure if these are bred by Peter Beales or these are ones that you just stock, but Heavenly Pink is done. That's an adorable little sort of
Nice.
multi-headed one. I'm
Yeah.
really keen with that, and Bouquet Parfum as well. That's one I've just finished recording with as well, and
Oh,
that
okay.
one
Yeah.
very captivating rose with sort of multi heads. But another one of yours, I'm keen to. I've got in the garden ready to review. It's a bit shy to flower this year. Is Loyal Companion, which I
Oh,
recommend to people
yes.
an awful lot, especially when they may have make, but they're asking for roses to commemorate the loss of pets.
Yes, absolutely.
A very hardy little rose, very fun. It moves beautifully in the wind. Again,
Yeah.
and again, it's very robust as well, which I think when you're dealing with a memorial rose, you always kind of hold your breath, because the last thing you want to do is recommend a rose with a correct name, that's going to help someone with their grieving process, and then the rose is not very good disease resistance, is not very hardy
Yeah.
or not very
No,
tolerant,
agreed.
and then the rose itself actually dies, and you just want the ground to eat you.
Yeah.
But no,
No,
yeah, Loyal
absolutely.
Companion, a great little rose from you guys.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and the coloured kind of a colour changing aspect to it as the flower fades, sort of from an orange all the way through to white, goes
Hmm.
through pink and then to white at the end. So yeah, once you've got it going well and it's flowering well, you will have three or four colours at the same time, which
Which, yeah.
again is lovely.
Yeah, really good for sort of mixing with other plants like you have done in the garden at the show gardens at Peter Beales. My husband was enamored with. I didn't know he liked cistus so much. Everything he said, oh, this is a pretty rose. It's well, that's not a rose. That's a rock rose. That's a cistus. And I had no
Yeah,
idea that he liked them. But yeah,
yeah, they are looking fab actually.
yeah.
There's several, and we don't particularly prune them. We just let them do their thing, so they just get bigger and fuller, and they just do what we need them to do, which is great.
Until they get to about 12 years old, and then all of a sudden they sort of lie down in a corner and die, and then you have to pull them
Yeah,
out.
yeah. So then that's going to be a big job for me at some point.
I noticed you've got a very deep cerise pink rock rose, a cistus planted alongside. Is it for your eyes only in the garden?
Yes.
Yeah, a very, very bold color combination, which really, really worked beautifully. Those cerise pink and that mauvey pink both together looked really lovely
Yeah,
with
they
a little
do work really well.
little
Actually,
bit
I've
of
been working on
violet.
that bed this morning.
It's a very bold and distinctive color combination, but it does really work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes you can just go for it.
Yeah.
It's the muted colors and the picking your pastels out and whatnot works really well. And then sometimes let's just hit it with big bold colors and
Yeah, I was
keep
taught
it interesting.
talking on my live streams when I was up in the gardens at the weekend to people about not being shy about mixing not just colour but the form of flower as well. And there was one particular rose arch which had a very deep I don't know, I can't remember the name of it, but a very deeply cupped pink climber paired with a really open formed red. So you had not only two different colours, but you had two very, very distinctive forms of flower together as well, and that worked really, really nicely. And I took away again. I mean, I know a lot of these roses are quite small. A lot of the patio and potted roses are small, but you've got one in a hanging basket as well, which again I've never thought of doing.
Yeah, that's red velvet flower carpet in there.
Okay,
That was really for an experiment to see how well it would work.
well, it works very
And
well.
we used it to show people on our planting and pruning courses. So we
Yeah.
had we'd take it in and we kind of talk about planting things in pots and okay, well, what else could we use? And you put up this hanging basket, and people's jaws just drop every time. You think, wow, that's why wouldn't you do that?
Well,
And
again, mine did. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never put a rose in a hanging basket before, and there it was hanging from the bottom of that observation
yeah,
platform. Just I mean, a lovely little plant, obviously, and not a huge hanging basket either. One of those cone-shaped ones. There's not a massive
yeah,
amount of
that's it.
soil in there.
No, the only issue with those is that they do need a lot of water. So
I can imagine it
some
does.
days
Yeah.
it's you might be talking watering it twice a day, which
Hmm.
isn't always practical.
No, which I
Um,
suppose most people would be doing with a normal hanging basket anyway during the peak summer months, wouldn't they?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as it's somewhere that you're gonna walk past regularly, and you go, oh, actually, yep, I'll just put some more water in that. It's not one I'd leave at the end of the garden, forget about, and go, oh
No, no, I only have
no.
one hanging basket here in the garden. It's right outside the front door. So whenever I empty the dehumidifier, because I live in a very old house, so the dehumidifier runs all year round. So yeah, I open the front door and sling the contents of the dehumidifier in it.
Perfect. Waste not, want not, hey?
So you were saying earlier that you're slowly building yourself up to be you're full time in the garden now, and the head gardener slowly um passing the baton over to yourself. And we were talking about those large swathes of rock roses you've got there. Have you got any
Yes.
plans in your head? I mean, I'm not going to hold you to them, but any plans moving forward to make slight adjustments or changes to the garden?
Um, Nothing particular, if I'm honest.
Hmm.
Just as trying to keep on top of it, I think is my main focus. So for
And
the
is it just the two of you?
yes.
Goodness me,
Um,
so it's a big space for
yeah.
something so
Well, yeah,
intense.
just the two of us. Vaughn's wife comes and cuts the grass a couple of times a week. So for a couple of hours, she's on the rider mower and comes and cuts the grass for us, which is
Yeah,
fantastic because
yeah.
even that takes time away from your normal day. So, but yeah,
So
otherwise it
I
is just the
will,
two of
however,
us.
say sometimes it's very nice to lose yourself behind a piece of equipment, though. I think I do some of my best garden thinking behind the back of a lawnmower.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sometimes you do just need that. Yeah, that kind of mundane task
That's it.
just to
Yeah,
let you
I come up with my best
so your
ideas
brain
whilst
can do
driving as
do something
well.
else. That's it. Yeah, we had a bit more help over the winter months. So we had Sam join us, who works out in production,
Yeah.
and he helped us with a lot of pruning, and we did a lot of big clearance areas that over the years we haven't had the time to do them all, or if the weather's been particularly bad, um, then you just can't do these huge jobs. So having an extra pair of hands in those months when we could just get out and get everything pruned and everything looking tidy, and even when there's no flowers and there's nothing, all the edges were still nice and tight.
Hmm.
All the arches, all the structures were clear, everything's tidy and beautifully. So even then, there is still there's a real beauty to the gardens at that time of year as well.
Yeah, here in my garden at North Lodge, there is only about 6 weeks of the year where I don't have a massive amount of colour, and it normally starts at the beginning of sort of mid to late December. The garden goes very quiet, and then I have the first snowdrops that come through probably in sort of the end of January. And the
Yeah,
garden, I actually really enjoy it. And a lot of people say, why do you enjoy this?" And I think now it's like I enjoy looking at the blank canvas and just the bare bones of it. And then I'm
absolutely.
walking around the garden now. I mean, obviously, I'm filming virtually continuously at the moment for content, and I find it astonishing. I sort of turn around and all of a sudden something else has opened and it's got even bigger. And, we're lucky it's all irrigated and there's not being water being piled on top of it. It's actually irrigated from ground level. So now with the warm weather, it seems to be fueled. I mean, do you water in the show gardens, or is it left
We
to its own
Yeah, we
devices?
do.
Yeah.
No, we've been watering the grass for months. It feels
Okay.
like this year. It's been so dry.
Well, it's in very
Last
good
week to have
condition.
Yeah, last week to have 2 days of good rain was fantastic. I mean, the hoses didn't have to come out.
Yeah.
Um, there are things that are in pots, obviously, so they do get watered a few times a week. And some of the big arches, so the roses are planted into the arches, but they are, there's holes in the bottom, so they do go down into the ground below. But we do still give them a good soak once
Hmm.
or twice a week, just to give them a little bit of a helping hand.
Because they're
Um,
enormous plants in relatively small areas, aren't they?
that's it, yeah. But the majority of the stuff that's in the beds doesn't tend to get watered too much. They get
Hmm.
watered in when it's been planted, and if it gets a little bit of a soak from the sprinkler on the grass. But no, generally speaking, they kind of they have to fend for themselves a little bit.
And when will your new varieties be planted into the beds? When will people actually be able to see the new ones launched this year planted? Will they make their way into the show garden over the winter
They will
months?
do. Ashtonwold is already in the garden.
Okay,
We put that in before it was launched, but we just didn't put a label on it. We did. We
just
had
going to say I obviously missed that one then.
the label just said seedling at the
Ah,
time,
okay, yeah.
so it may not have been labelled as Ashtonwold when you came.
Hmm.
That's in one of the newer circular beds. Um, yeah, and the other two will make their way in as well at some point. Um, yeah, it'll be finding a space. It might even be that we have to dig another area up, which is always a lot of fun. I love digging a hole, so I'm fine.
And talk me through a little bit about the kind of maintenance you're using in the garden. I mean, you obviously got awful lot of plants that have been in the ground for between sort of 30, 40 years, so they've been in the ground quite a substantial amount of time. What kind of feeding regime are you using with them?
Yeah, so things are getting fed regularly. With When we're spraying the plants that are for sale, just for kind of general pests and diseases.
Hmm.
We also use to spray the gardens as well. So there's things like Uncle Tom's is
May
going
I was
on.
just going to say, may I ask what you're using? That you're using Uncle Tom's as a general tonic and feed?
Yeah, that works well. Then we've also have had kind of more um, agricultural style sprays. So whether they're available to buy individually, I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, we definitely use a lot of grow more earlier in the season,
Yeah,
and that will go on again after the first flush has gone.
yeah.
So we'll go around again and feed. Some of the pots um, around the place, and especially the hanging basket, will either get some element of either Tomerite, which is fantastic from roses, or liquid seaweed, any of those. Um, yeah, and then it will just be whatever else comes up on the spray program throughout the year.
So making sure that you give them a little bit of something every so often to keep them moving.
That's it, yeah. But yeah, generally speaking, kind of from a personal point of view. So in my own garden, I don't put any chemicals on other than feed. I
Yeah.
just feed and I just water and I don't do anything else. and my roses are really happy. I'll have a bit of black spot, I'll have some green fly and aphids and whatnot, bit of rust maybe, a bit of mildew, but generally speaking, everything's fine. And a lot of things, especially we've had a lot of people, oh, how do I kill the aphids? How do I do this? They're not going to do any harm. They just look a bit unsightly. So to give them a spray with a hose when you're watering, let the birds come and do their job, and
Yeah.
let's not try and just kill everything.
Well, this year I've been involved with a ladybird company who actually sell ladybird larvae and ladybirds.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
yeah, I've been helping them publicise the use of ladybirds in the garden to control aphids, greenfly, blackfly. And goodness me, has it been a terrible year for them? I mean, bearing in mind it was actually a fairly cold winter, but
Mm,
the aphid infestation this year has been terrible. I mean, just
absolutely.
roses just dripping in them for. And again, the ladybirds are about, and I've released several hundred anyway. But and I've got plenty in the garden anyway. But yeah, it's been a really, really bad year. And last year was really bad, probably for you guys as well, for black spot because it was so cold and so wet. And now this year it's mildew because it's now dry.
Yeah,
So it's a flip
yeah.
side of it.
That's it.
Yeah,
And I think, I think whatever happens, there's always gonna be something that you would love to be able to control,
yeah, but you
but you
can't.
just can't. So it's almost a case of you just kind of got to go with it. When we're talking on our kind of scale on our show gardens, when we have a bit of black spot, if we thought about stripping every single leaf off something that had black spot, then we wouldn't do any other jobs for that day or for that
No.
week in some
Yeah.
occasions. So you kind of have to pick your battles a bit.
And being, I mean,
Um,
and being a garden centre as well, I assume, I mean, I used to work in garden centres years ago, and people used to bring me little plastic bags of things, and I'm assuming it's sort of you sort of want to scream at them, no, don't get that out in here, and then get out this
yeah.
infested thing that's sort of riddled with all sorts of horrible. What's this got? I said, well, just put it back in the bag. Nobody wants that. You've now infected the whole garden centre with whatever that
Yeah,
horrible thing is.
we do see a bit of that. Yeah, we're more than happy to try and identify things, but photographs are absolutely fine.
Yeah, don't bring that in here. Nobody needs that in here when there's this many plants all in one place.
No, absolutely. No, we do actually have we do a lot of plant ID for people, especially with roses or people who've um inherited roses when they've moved house and whatnot.
Oh.
People tend to not leave labels on, which
Oh goodness me!
is
It's a
absolutely fine.
it's a subject which makes me want to disappear into and under the sofa cushions or something. That yeah. What's this? I've got this at my allotment. I think it's been there for about 30 years. You think, oh goodness me, it could be anything. There's bloody tens
Yeah,
of thousands of these. How am I supposed to
yeah.
and you get a picture and it's all out of focus and it's oh goodness me.
That's it. Yeah, we generally speaking with the Rosarians we've got here, the experience they have got. So the Ian, Tina, Vaughan, with the two of them have got 40 plus years. Vaughan must be 30 something years experience.
Yeah,
Generally speaking, they can probably identify it from two or three photographs, which is just incredible to see.
yeah.
I'm nowhere near that. My colleague Rosie, who's been here 10 years now, she is way above my kind of level of identification. So she is definitely the next big thing when it comes to identifying roses. Um, but if any of you, if you've got any of your listeners, your followers that want something identifying, they're more than welcome to send it in to us.
Oh,
I
you're you're laying down a gauntlet now.
absolutely. All we would really want is a good picture of the flower,
Yeah,
um, a picture of the leaves and the thorns,
yeah.
and a good picture of the actual plant itself so we can see size and scale of it.
And sort of
And
habit, the
usually,
growth habit.
yeah, so from those three pictures, we should be able to come up with something if, especially if it's something that you've got no idea of, or, it was in your grand's garden and you just, you'd want to know whether you've got to risk digging it up to take it with you or whether you could just buy another plant and it's the same thing. So,
Again, it's a question I get an awful lot saying, I'm moving house and I've had this plant for like 20 years. Can I dig it up? And it's July and it's in full flowers. Oh, goodness me, no. I mean, if you want a dead
absolutely.
plant, yeah, I mean, yeah. Please, yeah, and I quite often say to people, this is really easy. Just say to the person that's buying your house, we wish to return to my house, the house I sold you in November and dig it up then. And most people are fairly amicable and say, yeah, well, if that's the stipulation, come back and dig it up. You're so much better digging it up and moving it when it's dormant than rather than,
Definitely.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
actually a really good idea. I'd not thought of
rather than
doing that,
just
but
pulling
that
it. I
next
mean,
time someone asks me that, that's a good answer.
I mean, if we're only asking people to be patient for normally about 6 months of the year, but yeah, just please don't dig it up in June and July and
Yeah.
August when it's fully in flower and it's been in there for decades. And so I couldn't. And they said again, I get an awful lot from people saying, "Oh, I couldn't bear to leave it behind." It's well, now it's definitely dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah. It's not.
show you the
It's
picture of it. So, well, it's even worse than a bare root rose. It hasn't got any root. It hasn't got. It's just this lump on the bottom of it, and yeah, never mind.
yeah. It's definitely not the way to go, is it?
No, people keep me in questions. Put it that way.
I'm sure they do.
Ah, dear. So the garden is open is actually open 365 days a year or all year round.
I think we're closed on Christmas Day,
Wow,
but I think that is the only day. But there's not a lot to see on Christmas Day either, so that's not the end of the world.
but
But
no,
no, we're
they're
open yet, and it's eight a.m. till 6 p.m. during the summer months. Yeah, open bank holidays.
And out of all the roses in the garden, which really captivate your attention, Matt? Which ones really have really stolen your heart? Because when I was up on the observation tower or deck, I came away with the Alchemist. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Yeah,
yeah,
that
lovely.
one just stunningly beautiful. Sort of rich apricot, light apricot faded to a light apricot climber, which yeah, that one's made its way home with me. But which of the roses in the garden are really captivating you?
So for me, I mean the list is probably about 100 or so deep, but Purple Skyliner is definitely up there for me, which
Okay.
is a repeat flowering short rambler, sort of 2.5 meters,
Yeah.
scented, sit in the sun or the shade, absolutely cracking. Cecil Brunner Climber, which is grown over an arch and another couple of places in the garden.
See,
That's the
I
first rose
don't
I remember smelling when I joined. So every time I
don't
smell that, it just reminds me of that. Oh, yeah, that's
I
when I
don't
started. That kind of
I
that
don't
feeling.
get on. I don't get on with her at all.
Do you not?
No, I had a bad experience with it. I suppose I need to put it. I might need to talk to my therapist about it. But I got
No,
tangled
that's
up in it
fine.
really badly, and I mean, it really badly bit me.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I can remember getting very angry with it, and I may or may not have hit it with a spade. I can't
do you know
confirm or
what?
deny that, but it's very spiky.
I have a similar story with, or the same kind of relationship with roundelay climber, and it hit me in
Okay.
the face, and it cut me all down the front of my face, and I no, that's off the wish list for me.
So that's two. What other ones are captivating you right now?
um, Hiawatha, which is
Easy for you
a
to say, yeah.
rambler. Yep, that's great. We at the moment we don't stock that. I think we are looking at whether we will reintroduce that. It's absolutely stunning.
Hmm.
Um, the Oxford Physic Rose, which I've ventured already, I love
Yeah.
that, and it just keeps every time I walk past, I'm like, yeah, you are doing very well. Um, wow, I don't really know where to stop. Um, there's so many that look
Go
lovely
on.
at the
Just
moment.
just just one more.
Um, Champagne Moment probably is
Yes.
looking
Yeah.
amazing. Really good, really robust. Repeat flowering. Not a great deal of scent to it, but wow, is it reliable?
Well, it's
Healthy, great flowering.
really glad I pushed you on to one more because Champagne Moment is a rose that's going to be reviewed by myself in a couple of weeks' time. It's
Ah, fantastic.
yeah, it's a really lovely well,
And not even
rich.
scripted, which is even better.
I know. I'm quite good at this, you see. No, it's one of my clients had it, and it was the only non non Peter Beales or non David Austin or non. It's I can't remember who bred it. It's not a Cordes either, but yeah, it was one of the non big branded roses that she had in her garden. It was planted in a very key spot, and it was absolutely stunning. So it was one that came to the list of ones that I had to add to my collection here. So. It is in the ground. It's going through its trials now, but I've got quite a lot of experience with that one. But it's a very good rose indeed.
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I've actually just been in front of which one did I just review? I'm going to look. Oh, It's a Wonderful Life. Are you
Yes.
familiar with that
Again,
one? Yeah,
Yeah, again, that's a really lovely one.
A Colin Dickinson rose, and goodness me, is that a handsome plant? I mean, no other
Yes.
way of really sort of describing it. The bush is perfectly rounded and well proportioned. The foliage is just stunning, and yeah, a really, really nice apricot, rich apricot light orange. I'm looking it up on the mantelpiece now in a vase. Yeah, looking really, really lovely.
Yeah, no, that is also a very good
Yeah.
rose.
I've
Very
been
good.
a previous guest is a very good internet chum of mine, Brad from Select Roses. He's over in British Columbia. And you guys
Okay.
actually, you guys as in Peter Beales, have several of his roses actually grown in your collections. And now I'm going to run out of things to say because I haven't unlocked my phone quick enough because he actually sent me some images just this morning. So, oh, these are mine that that Peter Beales is stocking. So, not sure I'm going to be able to find them now, but oh, as good as it gets.
Yeah.
That's a little patio rose of one of his, and Sorry, that's a red one, and white patio. That's one of his that he's bred out of British Columbia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, and I was astonished talking to him just a couple of weeks ago that he's been hybridizing for 35 years, and his climate. I mean, the roses that he supplies are only sort of 2 years old when they go into like a 3 gallon pot, and they are enormous because of the sheer amount of
Wow.
rain they get. I mean, they've got stems on them as thick as my thumb. I mean, I've got great big hands, but they got stems on them as thick as my thumb, and they're about 5 feet tall by the time they get in these 3 gallon pots. They're just massive. And
Wow.
that's just down to the fact that they get so much rain. I mean, they never really sort of labour. And his focus with his breeding program is fragrance and color and form, but he's very focused on foliage. I mean, disease resistance and a high gloss sheen, and he likes the wet look. You know, it's very, very sleek, high sheen on the leaves, which really make the color of the flowers pop. But yeah, you guys at Peter Beals have got several of his, and yeah, he's very keen to get see even more varieties over here because he's got some fabulous ones. He quite often gives me little sneak peeks of what's in his breeding greenhouses, and he's got some fabulous
Excellent.
varieties in there. So yeah, very excited to
Fantastic.
see whether some of those make their way to the UK.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. I mean, while we're talking breeding,
Yeah.
um, I was over at Michael's last week. So he's our Chelsea guy and also our breeding guy.
Yes.
He's got this year's seedlings are incredible. Like I've not seen anything like it. The diverse color array he's got, and there must be that's 2,000 plants that were all kind of hybridized last year on the busiest time of the year for during Chelsea. And then he's sown all these seeds, and yeah, there is some real crackers. So yeah, so we'll be talking 7 to 10 years time before we see these coming into you know hitting our garden centres and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited about.
Good. Yeah, I find it really interesting. The more roses that I review, I think I've reviewed about 140 so far. This year's cohort will see me up to well over the 200 varieties. Obviously, I grow over 300 in my own personal garden, and the more I
Nice.
get to see of each breeder's roses, I can almost identify them by breeder before I actually know who bred them because everybody seems to have their own thread that they follow with
Yeah, that makes sense.
color combination, whether it's leaf combination, or flower combination, or flower form and bud form. Everybody seems to have their own, and often it's the thorn count and the placement of the thorns. I can always tell as well because some breeders, Harkness, don't seem to be particularly bothered, for instance, by the thorn count. Some of them I got tangled up in one of those a couple of days ago as well. A very, very spiky thing that, again, I did actually swear at. But yeah, it's really interesting for me. The more roses that I actually see and actually review, I can almost tell which sort of breeding houses they came out of because of the kind of
Yeah, it's
attributes that each
interesting.
rose shows. It's very interesting.
Definitely.
So what kind of sort of colours are we talking about? Is it still quite muted, or is he moving his way into more stronger colour palettes? Because
Oh no, there's a bit of everything.
yeah,
So
lovely.
something that really jumped out at me was there was two or three whites, and they were so white. I've not, you almost think, no, that can't actually be that white. It was,
Yeah.
um, there was a couple that really jumped out. There was a pink I'd seen, and I don't think I've ever seen a pink like that color pink before.
Hmm.
So it was almost. I don't know, you class it perhaps as a Barbie pink, but
Yeah.
it was just that, just really kind of jumped out. What else did I see that really caught me? There was one, do you know the sweets fruit salads?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, it was that color.
Oh,
So that
wow.
kind of the mix of the orange and the pink, and it
Hmm.
was just, yeah. If that turns out
With
to be a good plant, then I'll have 10 because that was amazing.
Oh, wonderful. So some things to excite the mind moving forward as well.
Absolutely, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
amazing. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I know that you guys have been really, really busy, and it was offered that you could have come and spoke to me at the weekend. And I said to Victoria, I said, please don't make him come in at the weekend. They've obviously had a really, really busy time of it with Chelsea and absolutely everything. I mean, you must be absolutely burnt out if you feel like everybody else. So congratulations on 30 gold medals at
Thank
Chelsea.
you so much.
Looking forward to meeting you guys and the rest of the team at Hampton Court. Good luck with Sandringham and picking all of those roses over the next few weeks. I hope the weather is kind to you.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
It's the one thing we can't control. It being
Well, no,
being in
that's it.
England, we always do nothing but moan about it. But yeah, it always comes at us in slightly the wrong order.
It'll always be either too hot or too cold, won't it?
But thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to catching you again soon.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very
All
much
right,
for having me, then.
not a problem at all. Take good care now. Bye bye.
Cheers, then. Bye bye.
I want to thank Matt and the team at Peter Beales for freeing him up to be able to take part in this week's episode of the podcast. It was really lovely to hear his story and how he's changed direction in his career to follow a path which makes him happy. It only goes to prove that if you have a passion for something, it's well worth following it, no matter what time of life you find yourself in. I'm really glad that Mark and I made the time to make the long and arduous trip up to Peter Beales. It took us hours in the car, and at several points we considered turning home and abandoning the trip altogether, but it was well worth a visit. If you can't get to the show garden yourself, which is open almost all the way through the year, do consider taking a look at some of the media loaded to Instagram, YouTube and TikTok, and have a look at the live tours and videos I created while I was there. I hope that you'll agree that it's absolutely astonishing, beautifully planted, well maintained, and gives you some wonderful ideas which you can take home and use in your garden space. No matter how big or small, there's something for everybody. And of course, once you've fallen in love with some wonderful varieties planted in the garden, you can then head into the garden centre and pick up your personal selections and take them home with you, much like I did this week. And of course, make sure that you leave plenty of room and some time to enjoy a lovely tasty snack or a full meal in the Rosarian restaurant. Next week, I'll be concluding season 2 of the Garden Ben podcast, which will of course will be back for season 3 in October. I'll be catching up with Mark, as you know, my long-suffering husband, who's been putting in a huge amount of time keeping everything at the house and the garden moving while I create an enormous body of work for you over the summer months. Catch my conversation with him next week, and until then, happy gardening.